Welcome back to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm so grateful that you're here listening to this episode and would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. If you haven't already done so, please follow this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes and so that we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today, it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome you all here to this podcast interview. And today's guest is a 63-year-old baby boomer, known for his liberal views and described as a woke by his niece's friends. Despite being a university dropout and an unsuccessful local political candidate, he has experienced both significant success and notable failures in his career. Initially, he worked in human resource development, producing over 40 training films and running a family media business. After declining $1 million offer, he eventually sold the business for much less as YouTube had transformed the industry. Transitioning to show business, he managed a film production company and owned cinemas in Auckland and in Devonport, and ultimately facing financial failure. Post show business, he worked in retail and became involved in community service, notably with the Life Education Trust. Currently, he manages a retail store selling alcohol beverages, and his life is marked by highs and lows, has shaped his unique views on resilience, reflecting both on modern perspectives and his baby boomer roots. Let's welcome John Davies to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Welcome, John. How are you doing?
G'day, Anthony. I'm doing great. Thanks for the invitation.
That's great. What an amazing career you've had. All the different things you've done in your life. There's been failures, there's been successes, and but you've come through all of those. So tell me a little bit about how you've done that.
Well, I think it comes down to just having a thick skin. I think you have to be someone who just says life is going to throw curveballs, and you have to learn how to either dodge them and not let them hit you in the face, as the cricket ball did at primary school for me and convinced me I never wanted to be involved in or watch cricket ever again, through to just having fantastic celebratory moments with the times that it works out well, and if you can focus on those positive experiences, they're the things that you take through life with you. The negatives, you can let them drop away. But remembering that art you saw in a castle tower in Italy is much more meaningful to you than remembering the cricket ball hitting you at primary school.
Absolutely. So I'd like to ask you a question. How did your experience at university as a dropout shape your approach to lifelong learning and career development?
When you force me to reflect on it, I think, okay, that taught me my learning style. I went straight from high school to university, as many, many people do. But I think for me, I was over that structured, formal, long-term learning commitment. And I was much more involved, as time has shown me, in being someone who could learn regularly in small amounts. I love to learn these days from just picking up an interesting sounding book and reading it. I've read so many interesting and sometimes fun factual accounts of things. The next book I've got booked at the library for pickup is The Diary of a Sociopath. And it's an introduction to somebody who's realized that they are a sociopath at a low level, not a killer, but someone who just recognizes they don't have a lot of feeling, a lot of empathy for people. And so it's going to be interesting to read that, because I think one of the keys to success, honestly, is a strong sense of empathy. And so being able to pick that book up and read that information from a completely different mindset should be fascinating. It might not be. Sometimes you put a book down and go, I wish I hadn't wasted time on that. But it's taught me, dropping out of university from the structured learning that we had at university in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, was a boon to my ability to understand that I can keep learning forever, but I just want to do it in small bits. I don't want to be in a classroom. I probably don't want to be watching a webinar. I want to simply take the pieces and absorb them at my speed when I want to.
Absolutely. We are lifelong learners, and we are learning all the time. We are evolving all the time, and I believe we're doing sort of quantum shifts in our life, throughout our life, and if we take that opportunity to learn and apply ourselves, then we can achieve many things in our lives. Like yourself, I didn't pass anything at school, but I've worked myself and really pushed myself and believed in myself. So
Yep.
Awesome. So how did producing over 40 training films impact your understanding of effective communication and leadership within an organization?
A film producer in our field, an educational training film producer, came to New Zealand to produce a film with me. It was to teach early team leaders, early supervisors how to do their job well. And he gave me this formula that it was the first time I'd heard it. I've repeated it many times, and the occasional person recognizes it. E plus I equals C. Emotion plus information equals communication. And for me, that has been a lifelong tool. If you can engage people, get them to laugh in particular, it gets them to open their minds. And when they open their minds, they're much more receptive to the information you want them to take on board. So that emotional engagement and the right information that you want people to have ends up equaling communication. It ends up being a learning opportunity for those people, and it is a chance for you to be able to find a way to communicate effectively. And that's a leadership and a communication skill.
And so many people lack that these days in the working world, and definitely, and it's needed more and more. And I'm going to take that as a takeaway. E plus I equals
C.
Sorry?
Equals C.
Equals
That's the
C.
one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to remember that. Because as you know, I'm a business partner in a large organization, and I'm constantly talking to people about different things. And so, yeah, I'm going to use that.
Let me tell you how I put it in practice on a day-to-day basis. I do my absolute best to have people laughing as much as possible.
Yeah.
If they're giggling while they work, I'm hoping they're having a good time.
Yeah.
And if they're having a good time, they'll be much more able to do the work at the top level of performance they can deliver. That's my belief.
Absolutely. Totally agree. All right. So transitioning from your media sales to show business was a bold move. What inspired you to make that leap, and what did you learn from it?
The inspiration was boredom. I'd been doing the human resource media work for 25. Well, the first time I was involved in that industry, I was in what we used to call Form 6 at secondary school, which I guess was year 12-ish. And I would go into the family business in my school uniform, and occasionally I'd actually have to be the person who sat down with customers and talked them through buying the right thing for them. So that was in the late 70s, for goodness sake. And I didn't sell that business until 2007. So I was in that business for a long time. And it was getting crowded by government regulation, by educational dictates, and it wasn't the flexible, fun environment that we grew up with. And I said, I got to get out of this. It's going to do my head in. So that first industry was one I just needed to move on from because it was boring. When I got into the show business, which is kind of like a gross exaggeration of what I was doing, I was a marketing guy. That's what the 30 years in human resources was all about. It was about marketing and finding fun ways to communicate. And so what I did was get into the marketing side of film and the logistical side of film. And so for me, the key learning I got out of that change and the key challenge for me was to move from a business to business marketing environment to a business to consumer marketing environment, because suddenly I was producing marketing materials that were designed to entice mum and the kids to go to a family movie, or mum to get together with the other woman that she knows and go for lunch or afternoon tea at the movies. I had to write material that would motivate people to do that instead of motivating them on the benefits of having a better supervisor or the benefits of having a better salesperson. So the big change for me and the challenge that I faced as I went from distributing training media to distributing entertainment media was that total shift of I'm no longer selling business objectives, I'm selling entertainment and fun.
Now, I did stalk you on IMDb the other day.
Did you?
Yes, and I believe you're a writer, a producer, and an actor. Tell me about that.
I have contributed. I'm not a credited writer. Oh, no, I am a credited writer in my documentary, aren't I, Anthony? Do you want to talk about my documentary here, or shall we move on?
Well, maybe you could tell us a snippet of that.
Okay, so the movie that Anthony has stalked me on and noted a writing credit for is called Let's Talk About Sex. And it's a documentary about New Zealand attitudes towards sex. And what I did in that environment was I helped the film's primary writer and its director on just directional changes in interviews so that we could get and unravel some thinking from people who were both educated academics in the world of personal relationships through to 19-year-olds on the side of the street who would just bold up and ask them about their sex lives. And they would tell us about how they lost their virginity. And so the contribution was to help with the questioning and how we would go through there. It was a lot of fun. And I'm not really someone who could write a entertainment narrative script. That's not really a skill I think I've got. But helping people do that is something I'm enjoying a lot. I've been involved in a number of projects that are working their way through the system of development at the moment. And I'm always really pleased when I come to the end and a script is sitting for people to evaluate. And I can look at a moment in that script and I can say, I said to the writer A, and they were able to go plus B equals C and get that moment in the film. And that's where I contribute at a writing level. Producing, that's pretty straightforward. That's a logistical, marketing, accounting kind of thing. And in terms of acting, yeah, nah. Moving on. Next question, Anthony.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of featured extra acting, and it was fun. While we're on, and we've talked about communication, I just want to talk about. So you're part of Toastmasters, and you're president of Toastmasters. Is that correct?
I'm the president of one small branch of Toastmasters. Yeah, let's not
yes.
exaggerate this.
Yes.
Here in Silverdale, Lowry, we're in North Auckland. I am the president of a club of 19, 17, 18, 19. It moves around. People who like to get together and talk.
Yeah, and I have the pleasure of being part of that community.
And you're a great addition, mate.
Oh, thank you. And I'm hoping to learn a lot from you guys. But tell me how you got into Toastmasters, and because it's obviously been a while that you've been there, and you're probably part of the furniture. But it's like, what prompted you to go to Toastmasters? For me, Toastmasters was something that I always sort of went, no, I don't want to go there. But then for me, it was like, well, hang on, I want to be a public speaker. So what's the best place to go rather than, Toastmasters? So tell me a little bit about that journey before we move on to another question.
Sure. Well, I joined Toastmasters 3 years ago, so I was roughly 60. And I think for me, I saw Toastmasters as an opportunity to, my career since I left self-employment has been stalled in terms of public presentations. if you think about human resources and delivering training and producing films around that, workshops and public gatherings were just part of what we did. The biggest group I ever spoke to was 1,200 people for a breakfast in central Auckland back in the 80s. And that's a challenge. And that challenge had been missing from most of the last 10 years since I went out of self-employment and started working for people. And I saw Toastmasters as an opportunity to put that challenge back in my life. But more importantly, at 60, you start to think about things like Alzheimer's and just simply staying fit and healthy in your older years. And part of being fit and healthy is making sure this thing's working at the best it can do.
Absolutely.
And whilst that sentence wasn't well constructed, I'm not doing badly. And the opportunity was there to go, let's make my brain practice. So I'd seen signs on the road outside a building not far from where I live saying Toastmasters here tonight. And one windy midwinter wet night, I stopped my car and actually walked in the door. And within 3 or 4 meetings, I was a member, and now I'm the club president for a year or two. So it's been all about that. But the big growth opportunity for me, because I am pretty confident in front of a group of people, I can speak endlessly normally in front of a group of people. But the big growth opportunities turned out to be learning how to do a good job of helping people learn from their speeches and the opportunities those reveal for them to improve. I don't want to really acknowledge it, but I'm the second oldest person in the room. And for me, seeing people much younger than me, or even just slightly younger than me, grow and be pleased with their own growth has been a huge thing. And to think I've contributed a little bit along the way, that's great.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure being part of that group and learning lots from all of you guys.
Well, you go back to my formula, right, Anthony?
Yeah.
E plus I equals C. You weren't there when I was elected president the first time. You joined since. But I quoted that at my opening address after the first time I became president. I quoted that and I talked about how John Cleese, that famous comedian from the UK, talked about the background to getting people to laugh and being able to learn more effectively when they're laughing and having fun.
Yeah.
And that's a key thing. I think for our Toastmasters group, my fundamental contribution as its club president is to take those meetings and make them as funny as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And from that, I think it's more memorable, right?
Yeah, and we have a lot of fun in those meetings, and it's great. And I watched John Cleese on a training video for like call centers and things like that, customer service.
Yep.
And it was the most amazing thing that I'd watched because, he just, like you said, he made us laugh and we connected with it. So, yeah. All right. So I've got another question for you. After various career changes, you now contribute significantly to your local charities. How has this involvement influenced your personal growth and the community relationships?
I think for me, coming from a highly business-orientated background, the personal growth I've got from being involved in, I guess you could say, Toastmasters falls into the category of being one of the things I'm involved with. I've been involved with an art gallery. I'm currently involved with a community hub organization in one of our local areas. And I'm involved with my mate Harold, just there, the Giraffe Life Education Trust. So that, for me, has, I feel, on reflection, made me a much more empathetic person. Somebody who has a lot more time for listening and caring about the issues that other people face. I mean, I may have had a terrible moment in my business career and I've said goodbye to a lot of money and become an employee, and I'm no longer self-employed. But the reality is I've had a great lifestyle. I've experienced the world, well, big chunks of the world, And I've only recently known what it's like to be a little bit short of dollars. And it's, for me, it's been about learning to celebrate non-financial success. So like I was just talking about with Toastmasters before, I can celebrate the success of the others in the group. To see someone arrive in the group a year and a half ago with the most stuttery, difficult to listen to, difficult to even tolerate English language, and move to someone who I can listen to very easily now and be entertained by and see her sense of humor is huge for me.
Yeah.
And the other thing that it's taught me, being involved in the charities, particularly the local community hub organization, but also to a degree the Life Education Trust, is to be able to recognize calls for help, to understand when people really genuinely need something from other people to get through issues that they face in their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree. So, look, resilience has obviously been a major theme in your life. Can you share your views on the resilience, that's how it's evolved and how they've helped you manage your setbacks in life?
Sure. So essentially now I'm going to give a summary of a speech I gave at Toastmasters that you heard 2 weeks ago. I think for me, my experience of being resilient will be different to the next person's, to the next person's, the next person. And a couple of things I say, I think, will feel potentially, possibly even paternalistic. But I hope that at the heart of them is the secrets to resilience as I've seen it and can resonate with other people along the way. I think first off, knowledge is power. I think to be resilient, we have to have practiced that lifelong learning that we were talking about at the beginning of the interview. We need to have absorbed as much information and as much power from the universe as we possibly can, so that when the universe turns against us, we can say, well, universe, you taught me this back then or that back then, and it'll help us deal with what's being thrown at us. We do have to just be tough some of the time. We have to just say, I'm just going to let that be the water off the duck's back, because it's just that book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and It's All Small Stuff. It's true. And I think that I think you could put that in a way that says tough it out. You've got to sometimes have an attitude of selfishness, turn inwards and go, what's right for me right now? And pursue that. Pursue.
Yeah.
There's a book around, was written by a psychologist, management consultant. I'm not sure exactly how he put himself out there at the time, a guy by the name of Dr. Morris Massey. And he wrote a book, What You Are is Where You Were When. And for me, that's about recognizing our learned behaviors and our learned responses and sorting out what's working, actually physically working. I think What You Are is Where You Were can be applied to my next lesson, which was reflecting on resilience. I realized I'm a boomer, okay? I didn't realize just then I'm a boomer. I've known I'm a boomer for a long time, certainly well before Chloe dropped the hey boomer in Parliament that time. But my parents were adolescents and my father was an actual participant in World War II. Today we have people growing up in absolute horror in places like Gaza and the Ukraine. I wonder if being brought up by people who'd been through a level of horror, and to be fair, it looks worse in Gaza and Ukraine than it was for my parents running away to farms, or even my father going to the Merchant Navy at the end of World War II, was being brought up by people who'd been through a war an unconscious learning for us as boomers? I don't know. But it's an interesting thought that's been running through my head. But putting that aside, I rage against the world when things are going wrong. I'll take myself for a walk in the big Victor Eves Park or down Orewa Beach, and I'll go, "What the hell is going on?"
Mm,
And sometimes I might even yell that out loud. Best not to do that with other people around because they think you might be raging on them. But take that time to go off and let some steam off.
yeah.
Don't do it with your work colleagues. Strong recommendation. Don't do it with people who are, potentially going to lend you money to sort out your problems. Just do it for yourself.
Mm,
I always let stress out. And I learned pretty quickly not to do it with other people. I did it in my 20s. If I had a stressful moment, I'd let it out on the people around me.
yeah.
Today, I try not to do that. And that leads to the next point I would make about resilience, which is checking back and making sure you're not repeating the mistakes of the past.
Mm,
You're going to get through the problems you're in now. You need to not be repeating known learning
yeah.
that says don't do something like that, because it's just, well, what's going to happen? You're going to fail again, right? And so let's try and avoid that.
Absolutely.
I think until you're dead, life goes on, and almost no one has an entirely luckless life. You just have to keep rolling the dice.
Mm,
And if you've had failures, remember those are worth money because other people don't want to repeat your failures. You can sell that. It can be
yeah.
part of your shtick when it comes to getting out of the trouble you're in right now. Sell your ability to get through things.
Yeah. Well,
Sell your sorry?
failure's feedback, right?
Yeah, failure is absolutely feedback.
Mm,
But always accept responsibility for that. Be grown
mm,
up about it, know that you failed, and learn from that.
yeah.
So that's my I think that's my reflection on resilience.
Yeah. And also, I think another one to add to that is compassion. Be compassionate to yourself. You know, you're doing the best you can at the time you can that you've got with the knowledge that you have. And as you said before, if we're lifelong learners, every time we learn more, we can go further. We can take on more. But being compassionate and not beating yourself up. Would that be right?
I think that's something I could learn, Anthony. I think I'm probably my harshest critic in my moments of
Mm,
self-reflection. I will tell myself off for doing things that in hindsight didn't work the way they were supposed to.
yeah.
And I feel like I could have done better. If it's a genuine first time learning, then sure, fine. I
Oh,
take that on as a learning experience. But I'm not particularly compassionate with myself, no.
yeah.
And
I mean,
maybe I should be more
if
so.
we keep doing the same thing and we're getting the same result and we're expecting a different result, as Einstein said, that's a sign of insanity,
No.
right?
Yep.
So if we keep making the same mistake and we're not learning from it, then there's something needs to change, because there's that saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So yeah, that's what I think anyway. But yeah, we all can be more compassionate with each other, and um, you've heard my story, and I'm not going to go into it here, but yeah, like you, I've been through a lot in my life and learned how to be more resilient. And now I've gone back into an organization where there's chaos and it's uncertainty, but I'm able to help people really be kind to themselves and be compassionate and just observe and let the possibilities and evolve by themselves. So, okay, one last question, and then we're going to go into 5 quick fire questions.
Okay.
So, what advice would you give someone facing a career or personal setback based on your diverse experiences and the resilience that you've developed over the years?
So one, stand up and realize where you're at today.
Mhm.
2, work out the actions that you can take and make those actions reflect the urgency and extremities of where you are at today. When I had my business failure, what I realized the most urgent and extreme thing was was to make sure I still had enough money to contribute to the family income to pay the mortgage, right? That was number one. So make sure you understand the urgency and extremity of that. Then don't stop working on it.
Mm.
Perseverance in almost everything will cure almost everything.
Mm.
And I remember one of the little training films that I sold back in my very early days was called Sam's Secret. And Sam's secret was just essentially work at it. Put the time in and work at it. And I think Sam's secret is not a bad rule to run life by, and certainly not one that I would say doesn't contribute to a strong sense of being resilient.
That's good advice. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So here we're going to go into these quick fire questions, and they don't have to be long. They can just be a sentence or a few words. How do you define success, and has that definition for you changed over time?
It definitely used to be money defines success, and now it's about positive feedback.
Absolutely. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
I thought about this, and I thought about this, and I thought about this, and I decided I don't have that person. I've always inspired myself to grow, do better, and solve my own problems. And I can't credit anybody with being my number one inspiration. So sorry, fail.
No, absolutely.
So it sounds a bit arrogant to say I was my best inspiration, but there you go.
No, absolutely. I mean, I could say the same, because when we succeed in life and we take on challenges and we overcome those challenges or setbacks, we inspire ourselves to, and there is a thing about taking inspired action, right? And so you get the inspiration from the universe, your intuition then guides you to make a decision and take action. So absolutely, we inspire ourselves every day. So
good.
Yeah. What is something that you believe that others will disagree on?
Diversity breeds success. That's my short answer.
Okay, we'll go with that. And if you could go back to your younger self and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Mate, it's not about the money. It's about the experiences and feeling that you've helped.
100%. Totally. Okay, last one. What is one message you would like to share with the world?
Well, once upon a time, I would have loved to have said it was be kind. But that phrase has been thoroughly trashed in the last 6 years. So let's say just look for every opportunity to do good, reap rewards within yourself, and don't forget to see a dental hygienist regularly.
Absolutely. I found that out last year. Yeah, this year.
I was reminded how important it was, because this morning, guess where I was?
Yeah, and it's not cheap, is it?
Oh no, and it's gone up 10% in 6 months. So there you go.
Yeah. I was horrified. I had to go to the accident emergency thing because I was getting a pain in my leg. And it ended up costing me $170, even with the community services card. And I was like, what? So yeah, that's interesting. And, yeah.
You do realize that Americans listening to this podcast are going, $170? We can't step over the door for $170.
Absolutely, yeah. But I guess it's all relative in where you live, right?
100%.
Yeah. Right. So there are going to be people who have been inspired by your stories that you've shared, the questions that you've answered, and the gold that you've given us today.
Right.
If someone was interested in Toastmasters, or someone wanted to talk more about film or training and all those great stuff that you've done, how would they get hold of you?
I guess the easiest thing to do is to just drop me an email at the fear of being inundated with spam. Yeah, my email address. That would be the best way to get me. It's johnthefilmguy@gmail.com. How easy is that?
There we go. johnthefilmguy@gmail.com. But you've also got some links, right? All my links, is that right?
I've got an all my links page, haven't I? Yeah, I forgot that.
Yes. So
Yeah, so that's not bad, but how do you easily find that page? I don't know.
well, what we will be doing is in the description of this podcast, we will
Yes.
be putting some links in.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll put the Toastmasters link for Silverdale Oriwa as well. So if people wanting to join, they can go and have a look at the website and get in contact with, I believe it's Marius or yourself.
At the moment, yeah.
Yep, and we'll put some links in, and people can connect. And
Personal commitment to myself. Go check my all my links page. Make sure it's up to date. Done deal.
Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Champion Mindset Collective podcast today, and I really want to thank you for being here and sharing your story and the tips and tricks and the wisdom that you've shared with us today. And
Fun.
yeah, and who knows, we'll get you back for another episode with some, speaking about some other topic that you're really passionate about. I'm sure you've got plenty. So
Well, one can always be passionate about oneself, right?
Absolutely. So we'll get you back for something else. So yeah, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And if you're watching this and if you feel inspired, or then share it with your friends, your family, your workmates, your cat, your dog, whoever. You know, it's going to help someone. And drop a message if you go to the Champion Mindset Collective Facebook page. There'll be a link in this description. You can join the page, the group, and you can look at all the information that's there that I've shared over the last year. And please connect and share your insights on social media, and tag myself and tag John in if you can find him. I'm sure we'll put some links in, and we would love to hear from you. So thank you so much for joining us today. We wish you all the best, and have an amazing day, everyone.
And thank you, Anthony.